Hello! It is another Tuesday, which means it's time for another in real life video. And this week we are, of course, taking another general viewer submitted question. This one from quite far back, actually, in the list that I have prepared. And as always, feel free to submit your own general viewer submitted question. Well, a little redundant, but feel free to submit your own in the comments below any of these IRL videos. But I will say it helps me a ton if you include a question mark, because YouTube has this fun new feature. I say new. It's been around for like half a year or so, where you can sort comments by if they contain a question, right? And it seems like they got it working pretty good, all right. There was a point in time where, oh my gosh, sorry, where it wasn't working too well. Maybe they fix that, but at the very least, I can do the old Control F and find it myself if you have a question mark in there. Anyway, this week's question comes from a general viewer whose username should be somewhere in the bottom third of the screen right about now. And they ask, let me bring it up here. Have you or would you ever consider doing voice work for a mod? A question which has actually been asked a surprising amount of time, I would say, and I'm flattered, of course, by its asking. I'm, of course, incredibly flattered by the what would you call it, the insinuation that you would think that I would be deserving of such an honor. But it, like I said, it is something that I've been asked quite a bit. Apologies if this isn't even the first person who asked it on an IRL video. Specifically, there have been plenty of folks who asked it not on IRL videos, but I think this is the first person who asked it on an IRL. But regardless, to answer the question, and also to sort of spin it out even further into just like voice work, voice acting in general. Sure, yeah, I'd be totally down for it. That's the short version. Is yeah, sure, yeah. The more complicated and longer version is, when it comes to doing for a mod, right? Volunteer work is typically what it is. It's pro bono, as it were. You're doing it out of sort of the love of the project or the love of the people involved, something along those lines. There's some degree of passion. For me, that is very like circumstantial. Obviously, if there needs to be some sort of passion, but also being someone who does not have like strict hours for what I do for work, for making videos, I find that I will sometimes run into an issue where it's like, well, do I have time for this? Right? Do I have time to do this? Because this, in a certain sense, this kind of occupies a middle ground between like work, right? Doing like a video, doing like clerical work for the channel, doing editing or whatever. And sort of like free time, right? Where, I've talked at length about how sometimes there are just games that I just play off camera for fun, either with friends or solo. I've been playing a lot of The Sims 4 lately. I bought some of their packs during their recent summer sale. But regardless, it occupies kind of a middle ground where it's like, it feels kind of like work, it feels kind of like free time. But no matter what way you cut it, it takes up some amount of time. And when you're in a position where you sort of dictate your own hours, you definitely run into issues, right? And sometimes it's like a feast or famine situation. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I got plenty of free time. I'm not doing too much. I'm not like hyper fixated on some sort of game that I'm playing in my free time. I don't mind. Yeah, sure. I'm down to try this whatever out, And then other times the opposite is true, right? Folks have also specifically brought up before quite a few times, and I've answered this in comments, so I feel like maybe I should answer it for real in a video, as sort of a way to refer people to it. But people have specifically asked about me voicing whatever in a mod, like, for instance, Skywind. Every so often, Skywind will put out, like, a casting call. I think they might be done with it for now, right? But, I would imagine that it will not be the last of its nature. I'm sure, given the sort of ever-present and ever-popular nature of Morrowind, when eventually Elder Scrolls 6 lands, some team somewhere, a group of intrepid volunteers will try to undergo and do the undertaking of recreating Morrowind within Elder Scrolls 6. I would imagine that this will continue in future Elder Scrolls games until the day I die, and continue onward until, like, humanity dies, right? But to take it back a step, would I do it for Skywind? The answer is yes. Originally, when they first came out with the casting call thing, I was in a period where I didn't have time for it. But I think it was the second time, I actually did totally record, like, a sample, and I offered it up. A lot of people were like, you should submit to this. You should do an entry and see if you get accepted. And I didn't. I didn't. I did. I believe it was for like a just generic Dunmer NPC. My sort of Morrowind Dunmer voice that a lot of people were like, you should do this one specifically. It didn't work out. Whether that because for whatever reason, because just straight up didn't make the cut, probably the most likely, or they were just swamped with entries at the time. I remember there was a point where they kind of wanted, ideally, you to be somewhat active on their Discord, which, unfortunately for me, I don't really do Discord. I'm horrible about it. I'm like such an old man. I don't mess around on Discord really at all. Any number of things, right? Which isn't to say, like, I hold it against them in any way. But that also leads into another aspect of it. If I ever did want to do this on a regular or semi-regular or even irregular basis for mods, or even for, like, anything more professional or paid, if I ever got so lucky. But if I ever did go that route, I don't think I would want anyone to know that it was me, you know? Right, I think at a certain point I would either just use my full real name if they ask for, like, how should we accredit you? Or I would make another moniker. I would come up with, like, a pseudonym for myself under, like, I don't want people to know that that the same guy who did this one voice was also this same guy right here talking to you through the camera, right? I wouldn't ever want that. At most, I think, like, if I ever played it and I was listening to my own voice, at the most I would do, like, a cheeky little sly, like, well, this guy sounds pretty cool, huh? Right? That's about the limit of it. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly why, but I don't want to cross the streams, as it were, if such streams were ever to exist, right? And of course, to further, like, exponentially expound this out even further and further, regularly doing voice work for even volunteer projects, let alone professionally where you're actually, like, getting paid, that sounds amazing, right? Especially getting paid for it, right? If you're bringing in, right, and granted, of course, you know, voice actors, there is quite the dichotomy, quite the gamut that you run between, like, okay, you're doing, like, side characters for an indie game on the regular, you know, versus Troy Baker money, you know? There is definitely some degree of variation in popularity and how much your asking price is, right? But it is, of course, worth considering that it's really tough to get into, like, professional voice acting. It's very tough. Even if you're, like, pretty skilled at it and can do, like, a good range of voices, I feel like it's only recently, in the past, like, 5 or 10 years or so, where studios have started really trying to, like, I guess maybe owe it up to, like, voice acting directors or something like that, or voice casting agencies, or you have your own voice casting, like, person working at the studio. I don't know the specifics of it, but it's only recently that we've seen games come out where they have a very large voice cast rather than just, like, a few people doing a whole bunch of voices, right? Of course, that sort of lets you get your foot in the door, but, you know, your take-home pay or whatever, if you're doing it professionally, is substantially less, right? Even then, you have perhaps less opportunity to sort of show off your talent, right? To get noticed further in that sort of industry, as it were. Less people just know you if you're the dude whose main contribution to the game are combat barks. Whereas, you know, if you're a primary character or the player character and you're voicing folks on the regular, you know, you're more liable to be recognized, right? And to be picked up again. And like I said, to take it back a little bit, there are a lot of people who want in on that, right? There are so many folks who want to get into doing voice work. It is absurdly difficult to get into. Probably not as difficult as, like, traditional acting and all of that, I would imagine. I don't know. But there are so many people who want to get into doing voice work. Either, like, voiceover, doing, like, audiobook reading, voicing characters on, like, animation, doing it for video games, stuff like that. People who just sort of set their sights there and kind of want to make something happen. There's no shortage of people that I see and watch on YouTube who, like, for instance, have an interest in video games and they want to lend their voice, lend their talent to a video game or whatever, right? There's no shortage of folks like that, ranging from folks who are incredibly talented, right? Who have, like, incredible range or have, like, a specific voice that they can do that is really, really solid. And folks who have, an audience that has gaslit them into thinking that they are far better than they perhaps really are. It ranges so greatly, you know? But it's just tough to get into, right? I don't want to, like, you know, I don't want to get to a point where I'm like, yeah, I'm relying on this when I got kind of a decent thing going here, right? It ain't perfect, but it's all right. It's pretty dang good. So if that ends up happening, I would be down for it. You know, if someone ever reached out to me and were like, "Hey, I want you in this. I'm working on this mod and I would love to get you in here to voice this character if you have the time." If I have the time, I'd probably be saying, like, sure, why not? Just don't accredit me as Lyle Shnub, or if someone who is actually on, like, a professionally paid project were like, yeah, we're a small indie team, we can toss you, like, a 50 if you want to voice a character or whatever in our game, or we can, or we're a huge studio, and it just so happens I'm Mr. Moneybags, and I think you, sir, ought to have $5 million gazillion for voicing our entire game. I would be like, oh my god, I'm retiring. That would be amazing, but I don't think that's gonna happen, right? I enjoy doing what I do here on YouTube as well, right? So I'm not exactly going out and seeking out these opportunities, but I don't know, sometimes if enough people bother me, then I'll, right? If enough people are like, Lyle, you need to go stop being an idiot and see if you can get in on this. Or if, like I said, if someone reaches out to me, I'll be like, yeah, sure. But otherwise, I don't know. I don't seek it out myself, right? I'm at a point where it's like, yeah, I get it. It's tough to get into, you know? It's very difficult to have this happen for someone, right? If it happens, but I'm not going to like, chase that dream and then also chase the dream of like trying to maintain a video game YouTube channel, which I feel is kind of an amazing feat in and of itself that I quite enjoy, right? I feel as though I am incredibly fortunate to be able to like cover role-playing games, like generally speaking, do videos for a lot of games that I actively enjoy. You know, I think it's incredibly fortunate. So, you know, I'm not like pushing my luck, as it were. But I think that perhaps covers all of it, right? Is there anything else I should talk about with regards to this? That way I can hopefully refer people to this video in the future. I think that covers about every aspect of it. Right? And like I said, I don't really hold it against any situation where, like, you know, I don't make the cut or whatever. If anything, that's part of the impetus, partly part of the impetus for not revealing sort of like who I am actively. Like, I'm some sort of YouTube personality and I am deciding to lend my voice to this game or whatever. On one hand, I think like you can have your own sort of like viewer base get overly defensive if things don't work out, right? Like, you know, if your first instinct was upon hearing me like not getting such and such role, was like, well, how dare they, right? I don't want that. You don't need to defend me in that regard. I'm a whole ass man. I appreciate that a whole lot, but it is not necessary at all. I don't want that to ever be the case to where it spins out in that way, you know? I'm a person who is very accustomed to failures in life. I don't mind at all. It's a-okay. It's water off of a duck's back or whatever it is, off of its wing, its head. I don't mind, you know, take it or leave it. In a similar vein, oh my gosh, I've forgotten what I was going to say. In a similar vein, hold up, we may have to do a cut here for me to remember exactly where I was going with this. Okay, I got it. Hopefully I remember to cut this part. Otherwise, you're just going to see me like looking down, kind of be like, looking very pensive, trying to think about this. But the other, and this one is also kind of important to me as someone who plays video games. If I am playing a game and I hear someone else who is like a YouTube personality, even if it's someone that I like, this is particularly true in paid work. When it comes to volunteer stuff, I don't mind so much because, you know, it's volunteer work. You're doing it out for the love of the game, for the passion. But when it comes to paid work, even if there is some passion involved, maybe I'm a bit of a freak, but nowadays it annoys me a little bit. I'm so sorry. This is even when it comes to people who I enjoy, right? If I'm watching or if I'm playing a video game and someone who has a popular Twitch stream or YouTube channel, is like, oh, I lended my voice to this character in this game, it irks me a little bit. I don't like the whole fanfare over that. I don't want to know. Let it be a surprise, you know? And true enough, there are some folks who go that route. But I don't want to know that this is you. It takes me out of the game a little bit to be like, well, here I am in this video game that I've been looking forward to, and this here is the voice of such and such, who I also watch on YouTube or I watch their stream of, it takes me out of it a bit, right? I think maybe there's a correct way to handle it and make it be kind of endearing in a way and more of like a tribute to like the player. But I feel like there's a certain mix of it where it's like, well, I run a very successful YouTube channel and here I am in the next big role-playing game that you've been looking forward to, and I have decided to lend my voice to such and such character who you will hear on the regular. And because I watch or listen to this person on the regular, every time I hear him, it just takes me out of it a little bit. I don't ever want to know. I don't want to ever know. And every time I recognize it, and it's been made evident to me, and I find out, it irks me some measure. It irks me to some degree. And I'm like, I don't care for that. It's the dumbest, pettiest thing ever. Like I said, these are, I don't want to name names, but these are people who I even enjoy, in some respects. The game I enjoy, the individuals in question I will enjoy. I don't know. It's just the perfect storm, I guess, where even originally way back in the day when this was first starting, when you would first notice like people who were internet personalities being stunt casted, as it were, I was down for it. I was like, oh, that's fun. That's funny. That's cool. Right? I love watching these folks, and it's cool that they have this whole side quest devoted to them in this game. That's fun. I was going to get the game anyway, but how cool is that they're like buds, you know? But now it's happened too much. It's happened too much for my taste. I'm like, I don't want to know. If you put them in your game or whatever, but I don't want to ever know that it's them. I want you to actively try and obscure from me who this is. Which is such a horrible double standard, because when it's like someone who is either like, who isn't like a personality in that regard, who isn't like an influencer on Twitch or YouTube or wherever, whenever they're like a professional voice actor or even like a professional, like screen actor, you know? I like that. I like that when I'm like, when I recognize, ooh, could this be the same person who voiced such and such from the other game that I liked? Oh my God, is this Troy Baker? Right? Oh my gosh, Yuri Lowenthal? Wait, hold up. This is Garrus Vakarian right here in Avowed, right? I like that. I like that a lot. It's horrible. I'm the first to admit that there is some sort of terrible double standard, but I don't want to know. I don't want to know. But I do like knowing if you got Patrick Stewart to voice Emperor Uriel Septim VII. I do like that, and I find it fun and cool. It's awful. I'll be the first to admit it's awful, and it's a terrible curse that I bear with me, right? And like to take it all the way back, this is why if I ever did this, I wouldn't want anyone to know, right? I would, if people find out and they're like, I know it's you. It's you, isn't it? I might, at most, I would just give you a winky face. But I don't want anyone to know. I want it to be a secret. I want it to be a secret. But, you know, those are all pie in the sky dreams. Like I said, the realities of the industry and like getting into it and all of that, it's a pain in the butt, right? Bless up though to the folks of the voice acting unions, right? SAG-AFTRA and all that. They just recently had a win like half a month ago or so, I think. That's pretty cool, you know, as someone who enjoys like the fine craft and art of voice acting in video games. Fantastic stuff, you know. Anyway, I think that'll finally do it for this week's question, for this week's IRL video. Hopefully this is one that I can remember to refer people to quite frequently. Because it is actually a question that I get surprisingly often across everywhere. All right. Until next time, please take care of each other.